If you're looking for ways to quit drinking, go to thatsoberguy.com. While you're there, be sure to join our free online men's community, the Victory Circle, where you can connect and network with other dudes who are living life without alcohol, maximizing their businesses, their families, their overall health and wellness. It's a great place to be, to get connected and get plugged in, so be sure to check that out. Also, follow me on LinkedIn at Shane Raymer and on Instagram at That Sober Guy Podcast. All the links from today's show will be in the show notes, so they're very easy for you to find. Now, you ever hear someone say, it's just one drink? Just one. It's actually good for you. Yeah, just have a drink. That they say, that's a glass of wine a day. It turns out that could all be bullshit. I always wondered about that. It never said, how is one drink good? How is any drink good at that? From a health perspective. So if that's your Uncle Rick who's telling you that, or Aunt Betty, they might want to sit the hell down for this one. The government might finally agree with your liver, it turns out, and disagree with Aunt Betty or Uncle Rick or that neighbor that likes to drink box wine and says, one glass is good for you. I don't know about that. I don't know. And the whole system is rethinking its alcohol guidelines for the first time in years. So this really affects everything when you think about it, from the $250 billion alcohol industry to your average guy who's trying to follow the quote unquote rules and drink responsibly. You hear that a lot at the end of the ads. And we'll talk a bit about that a little bit later, but you hear that drink responsibly. That's kind of their tagline, the big alcohol companies. And for many people, that's just not an option out there. Now, I will say for many people, some people, different people that are alike, whatever it is, people in general, maybe that is a possibility. They do drink responsibly. But I think the question to propose that one drink a day is good for you, that is definitely something that we're going to look into today and kind of prove that might not be the case. So what's changing? What is changing? And let's talk a little bit about what this looks like here. And I'll give you some context here. So U.S. health officials are expected to update dietary guidelines in 2025. And so here's a little background on that. Every 5 years, the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, they jointly update the dietary guidelines for Americans. And these guidelines, they shape national nutrition education, public health campaigns, school meal programs, military food services, and even food labeling and policy. And that next update is coming in 2025. And alcohol is at the center of a, no pun intended, brewing debate. And that's why we're talking about this today. And so let's take a look at what I want to say too. There's skepticism, I think, from myself and from many others out there when we think about these big departments like the Department of Health and Human Services, even down to the CDC. Where are they getting this information? Or how are they promoting it out to people? Is it accurate? Are the studies, are they peer-reviewed studies? And a lot of these things that they look at, because there's so many changes to them and there's so much discrepancy in some of the things that they promote and look at. And so I understand, and here's why I'm saying that. I understand that when many people hear these different agencies and these different organizations, that there's some questionable things that have gone on in the past, and people still tend to question today, which I think is a really, really good thing. We are seeing some changes in there, and I think there is some good people in there that are trying to do the right thing and make the necessary changes to provide a better, healthy society for kids, for adults, for families, and just people in general, the American people in particular, whereas, in the past, And this is a good example. Like one drink a day is a good thing. Like, how is that a good thing? Like, where is the scientific evidence that supports that? And where did that come from? Who put it out there? So I just want to kind of caveat that. And here's my point to this. Do your own research. Don't just go off what I'm saying. Don't just go off what some of these big departments or organizations are saying as well. Do your own research and also use common sense. Use your critical thinking brain that God gave us. When you say one drink a day is good for you, like just common sense would tell me that I'm putting poison into my body, and one drink is not necessarily going to be a good thing. I'm not arguing that it's a terrible, bad thing either to some people. Maybe some people can drink responsibly and do that. So I don't know that it is, but I think that we're going to talk a little bit about that in this podcast and why one drink a day could be considered a bad thing. So do your own research. I'm just trying to lay out the facts here and what is happening, and then give that to you guys so you can go and look into it and think about it and use your own brains to come to the best conclusion today. So what does the science say, and why is it a big deal? So for a long time, for decades, the government organizations, the health departments, they've recommended up to one drink a day for women and 2 for men as part of a moderate drinking lifestyle. Isn't that insane? Like, why would you recommend that? And I'll tell you why, because there's a lot of money behind it, but that's a whole different part of this today. Recent studies, though, including analysis, a lot of data, long-term cohort studies, now challenge that definition of safe. And so here's some of the things that they found in this. Even low-level alcohol consumption, so 1 a day, 2 a day if you're a dude, increases the risk of breast, liver, colon, and esophageal cancer. It increases the risk of heart disease and high blood pressure, and it increases the risk of cognitive decline and dementia. And the American Heart Association, the World Health Organization, and American Institute for Cancer Research all now agree, yes, that no level of alcohol is 100% safe. And I can't even believe that they would put that out there in the first place for years and decades. One of the biggest studies published in The Lancet analyzed data from over 195 countries and concluded the level of alcohol consumption that maximizes health loss. Let me read that again. The level of alcohol consumption that minimizes health loss is, get this, 0. None. 0. None at all. So what does this mean for the U.S. in 2025 as they get to ready to take another look at this? Health officials on the U.S. Dietary Guidelines Advisory Committee are reviewing these international changes alongside growing domestic research. Insiders say it's possible that the current 1 to 2 drinks per day recommended may be eliminated entirely, or it may be replaced with a weekly limit closer to Canada's recommendations. Guidelines may shift from acceptable intake to personal risk messaging, like there is no known safe level of alcohol. In other words, so eliminating the tagline whatever you want to call it, but 1 drink a day, 2 drinks a day. That's safe. That's a recommended dosage or a recommended amount, whatever that is. There's no known level of safe alcohol. And minimizing health risks, alcohol is 0 if you want to minimize those. You shouldn't drink, period. So this change would impact not just public messaging, but it could also disrupt things like the alcohol industry marketing claims, some of those numbers, some of that data research, which at the end of the day, what does that look like anyways? You'd probably have to dig pretty deep to find, an accurate description, I guess, of that. Physician and nutritionist guidance. It could also disrupt legal and corporate wellness programs. When we say disrupt, you're going to have to make adjustments to these types of things is what it sounds like. And it's changing. And then also cultural norms around moderate drinking. Like, what is moderate drinking? hey, let's do some moderate poisoning. How about that? Let's just put it in our systems. And not to say there's not a lot of other things that are toxic, poisonous, bad for us too, in our food, in the water, in different shots that people choose to take. All types of different things out there that could be toxic and bad for our bodies. But in this case, we're obviously talking about alcohol. I think we need to be level-headed and, like I said, use our brains at the forefront of all of this, whether it's the food, the water, different medicines, and obviously substances when it comes to it. So why does this all matter? And there's a lot of reasons why it matters, but let's start with a couple of them here. For decades, alcohol kind of had like a free pass, and it was marketed very well. It was marketed in some cases as sophisticated and to have fun, and it's just your local dad throwing on a barbecue, having a beer. It wasn't scrutinized the way cigarettes. It wasn't scrutinized the way unhealthy eating, like high sugar, dyes, that kind of stuff was, or definitely now is. Or alcohol has definitely not been scrutinized the way opiates have. And when you look at some of those numbers, alcohol-related deaths and injuries, I believe they are just as high, if not higher, than opioids. And not to say they're both terrible, especially for somebody who is addicted to them or it. And it causes a lot of hardships and a lot of health issues and a lot of deaths, unfortunately. But that's what's changing with, so basically, and I talk about this a lot on the podcast, the normalcy bias of alcohol. It's at a sports game. It's at a concert. It's on every aisle of every store, it's in every store on a specific aisle is an alcohol aisle, whether it's a liquor store, a grocery store. You're going to see it at events. You're going to hear people drink at funerals, at parties, they're celebrating, they're mourning, like all things alcohol related. And it's brought us to a point where it's so acceptable and so normalized. And that's changing with different responses and different consequences that we're realizing and seeing over the course of decades of studies and just of real life situations that have happened with regard to alcohol. Cancer rates are climbing. Mental health crises are growing. Millions of dudes out there are tired of feeling stuck. They're tired of feeling hungover. They're tired of feeling lethargic, not clear, not level-headed. They're tired of feeling hungover. They're tired of feeling the pressure to drink because it's been so normalized in this society and culture that we live in. And it's usually overdone too. Like, you're supposed to work hard and come home and drink a 12-pack or whatever that is, or have a couple of cocktails every day. That's just not normal. And it's been looked at as normal. And you were weird back when I got sober in 2013. I was weird. It was hard. It was so foreign. Like, wait, what? Sober? And I'm not saying at all that I'm the first dude who got sober back in 2013. I remember being in high school in the 90s and having a couple of friends. My buddy Justin Coote, who was on the podcast a long, long time ago in the early days, he chose at like 16 or 17 to go straight edge. And he was a straight edge kid, moving forward. And I'm pretty sure he's still straight edge today, which is freaking awesome. So there was roots into that way before I ever got sober. But what I'm saying is, even in 2013, the shift really still hadn't started yet. And it was still so normalized, and it was still very foreign for someone to say, man, I have a problem with alcohol, unless you were in the rooms, obviously, but out in the public and your family, your friends, and people hey, I think I'm going to quit drinking. This isn't serving me well. It was still looked at as somewhat weird. And I felt weird. I felt awkward. It was very hard. It was a big adjustment in that first year, especially. And what I had to do was I had to surround myself with people who supported me. I had to surround myself with others who had experienced issues with alcohol so I could relate and hear some of their stories. And then I had to find purpose, and I had to find fun again. And that's a big reason why I started the podcast too. I found a lot of purpose in that and still do till today. and I also had fun doing it. But it was really reestablishing self and trying to find the authentic self and trying to build, like, even with my wife and I, like, we literally had to build a whole new relationship. We've known each other since the 6th grade. We partied together for a long time. She didn't quite party to the extent that I did. You know, I kind of took it to a whole nother level. And so when I got sober, it was like we were meeting each other all over again, in a sense, because a lot of the things we did together involved alcohol. And I know that there's a lot of couples and people out there who can relate to that. And so this stuff is changing. People are starting to wake up to it. The just one drink a day thing, you know, it could be the exact thing, just that mentality. Like, it's cool if I just have one. That could be just even one, be slowing you down, making you feel lethargic, all that stuff. So let's talk a little bit about the science behind the shift. I'm not going to spend too much time on this, but the myth that moderate drinking is healthy. The myth that moderate drinking is healthy. New studies link even low alcohol use to cancer, heart disease, and early mortality. Alcohol increases risk of 200 plus health conditions. Yes, I said that right. 200 plus. Even just one drink daily can increase breast cancer risk in women. And we're talking about risk here, right? It doesn't mean that everyone's going to get it, but the risk is higher. And if you're a calculated risk guy like I am, I want to minimize risk in all aspects of my life. And I want to maximize potential in that and how I can grow and be better. And so even just one drink a day is risky in the grander, bigger picture. And check this out. I thought this was really interesting too. I didn't know this. Alcohol is classified as a group 1 carcinogen. And it's the same category as asbestos and tobacco. Yeah, can you believe that? I thought that was kind of crazy too. I did not know that. So when someone's like, "Oh, that's cool, I'm just gonna have like one," it's kind of like just saying, "I'll just stand in this like asbestos for like 5 minutes and just take a few deep breaths." Like, I mean, obviously not exactly the same, but similar, right? It's a group 1 carcinogen. It's poison. It's not good for your body, even one a day. And I don't know how they ever got away with. I probably do know how, because, like I said, it's a lot of money behind it, organizations, people, Brody's in there, you know, broing each other up and doing favors for each other. So they get things like that passed. And the alcohol industry itself is panicking, and they are there because it's changing, and lobbyists are already working overtime to try and fix this and to try to get out in front of it. And you can see that in some of the ads, and brands have invested billions in marketing, like I mentioned earlier, the drink responsibly narrative, so they can cover their asses. Okay. And new guidelines, like if they do pursue these and they say, "Hey, actually one drink a day is not good," it could really hurt the industry, the alcohol industry's profits. But here's the caveat to that. And we talked about this last week. I was trying to look at last week's episode. If you go back to last week's episode, it's titled "The $11 billion NA Boom, Why High Performers Are Drinking Smarter." So go back and check that out if you're interested in a little bit about the NA market boom. And I bring that up here because this whole thing, this whole adjustment that could be made to saying that one drink a day is not recommended anymore, it's going to fuel that NA market boom even bigger. And big alcohol, these big industries, they're nervous about this. They're nervous about this change, and they're trying to set their stake in the NA market to cover their ass. A lot of these different government related departments, they're advising that cutting alcohol consumption to 2 drinks a week. Like that's kind of what they're saying. And it that really puts a huge hole in some of the branding and marketing strategy. And I don't even know why you'd advise 2 drinks a week. Like, how about just advise none? I mean, obviously they're not going to do that because it's business, right? And they need people buying their products. So, I mean, I totally get that. But some of these big brands are literally having panic attacks and sending in lobbyists to try to figure out, and marketing executives trying to figure out, if this happens, how do we rebrand this? How do we counter this? There's billions tied to the drink responsibly myth. So for years, alcohol companies had promoted the idea of a moderation and responsible drinking. You've heard it about drink responsible. You see it on the signs, you see it on the commercials. And it makes sense too. I mean, from a common sense perspective, drink responsibly. The problem is a lot of people don't know how to do that. And the problem is when you drink, those inhibitions, and you don't think clearly like you would if you were sober minded. So they continued to promote that though, the moderation, the responsible drinking. It was a way around probably addressing some of the more serious issues, whether they're health concerns, whether they're safety issues like DUI accidents, driving under the influence, domestic disputes that happen with alcohol. Like I know a lot of people who've had a lot of negative things happen in their life, whether it be run-ins with the police, DUIs, fights, jail time, fines. I mean, all kinds of different stuff. And, it's like you hear about this stuff and this and that happened. And every single time alcohol is involved, every single time. And so what does that say? It's like, hey, do you think that might be an issue? Think that might be an issue. And so the responsible drinking, the moderation, it doesn't appeal to everyone. They want to distance themselves from public health officials and avoid that scrutiny. They want to distance themselves from the liability of all that stuff too, of the potential negative effects of drinking. But here, check this out though. The industry's own definition of moderate, 1 drink per day for women and 2 for men, which I mentioned earlier, but it was based more on a public acceptance and the industry lobbying that instead of science. And that makes complete sense. It's an accepted thing. Oh, you can have 1 or 2. And I'll tell you what they do. They do the math on this shit too. They go, okay, if we have X amount of drinkers and they each drink 1 to 2 drinks a day, and they multiply that over time, they get a forecast of their profits and their profit margins. And so it's in their best interest to say, yeah, drink responsibly, moderation, that. But hey, here's what we're recommending. And there's not science behind it. There's money behind it, and there's lobbying behind it. And there's this public normalcy bias acceptance behind it. So now as new research starts to debunk the health benefits of moderate drinking, or the entire foundation of their messaging is actually just under huge scrutiny right now, and it's falling apart really. Drink responsibly starts to sound more like, hey, don't mess with us. We don't want to get, we don't want a lawsuit. We don't hey, this is not, this isn't aligning here. And the lobbyists are a big part of this industry, different groups. They're pushing hard to influence the 2025 Dietary Guidelines Advisory Committee. So they're funding research designed to minimize alcohol's risks. They're running PR campaigns. These are the same tactics that big tobacco used in the 60s and 70s to delay, to distract people, to kind of downplay, minimize the risk, minimize the consequences, and make it still seem appealing so people buy their product. The lobbyists are arguing that lowering the recommended limits will confuse the public, will threaten personal freedom, and hurt small business. In reality, it's about, what do you think it's about? Obviously, protecting their market share, protecting their profits, protecting their companies. They don't give a shit about your well-being at the end of the day, is what I'm trying to say. And so I always like to say we can use that as fuel for the fire to quit. A lot of guys have, it's hard to quit. It is. Especially if you've had, a decade plus of drinking, you got to unwind all that, and it's a whole new lifestyle. But you can use some of this information, some of this data, some of these things that they've kind of imposed on us and led us to believe that really weren't true or backed by science at that. You can use that to your advantage when it's just another leg of the table to support the reason why you're going to quit. And I want to know too, how can they argue that it could confuse the public? I mean, you just come out and say the truth. How about that? How's the truth confusing? There's no way that a drink a day is healthy for you. There's no way. I don't understand that. So the new guy, so here's kind of to bring this back, the new guidelines that could potentially happen equal a threat to the profits, right? If the US adopts something close to Canada's 2 drinks per week framework, which I think I skipped over that earlier. Canada has somewhat of a different framework. 2 drinks per week is their recommendation. And so it sounds like that they're looking at a similar model as Canada's. It could damage brand trust in companies that have sold responsible daily drinking for decades. It could lead to new warning labels or advertising restrictions similar to tobacco. And then the consumer perception may shift rapidly, making daily drinkers feel more like smokers once did. And I did a podcast just, when was that? Let's see. Is boo on June 26th? If you go back, it's 4 episodes back from this one. Is booze the new cigarette? Why alcohol might be losing its cool? And that's exactly what this is alluding to right here and what we're talking about right here. Alcohol is losing its cool. It's not cool anymore. Even the younger generation. I was just reading something yesterday. They don't go like. Someone was posting about how Vegas is struggling so bad right now. Well, Vegas this, and it's the tariffs, and no, it's the economy, and no, it's not so much. I mean, maybe it's small parts of that. I don't know exactly, but I can tell you what it is. People aren't living that same lifestyle that they used to, especially the younger generation. They don't go to clubs anymore. They're not out getting hammered all the time. I'm sure there's small, there's definitely probably small pieces of that generation that do that occasionally, but it's definitely not like it was 10, 20, 30 years ago, where people were just partying and mad substances and going to clubs and gambling all the time. And the other thing is it's expensive as like, good Lord. Cash wanted to go to a Raider game out in Vegas, and I looked up the tickets and they're ridiculous. Like by the time you get tickets and travel and all that, it's just not, to me, it's just not really worth it. I would rather just get some good food at home and watch it at home with my family here and not have to travel and do all that and save the money. I think that's another thing, for when we look at it from a financial perspective, a lot of people are struggling right now. A lot of people are struggling. And so they don't have that extra money to go out and spend on extracurricular activities, and alcohol in particular is expensive too. It's another added bill to that. So alcohol is hedging its bets in a sense with the whole NA thing though. And I want to talk about that just a little bit. Even though we did that podcast last week, like I said, go back and check that out. But many major brands have already launched or acquired that NA, the NA branding, the NA product itself. You have Heineken 0.0, Budweiser 0, Athletic Brewing. Corona has one that's a NA beer. You also have a lot of other kind of wine cooler style ones, like in cans. I don't even know what they're called because I don't ever drink them, but I have seen them before. And even one of my buddies who I've been working with even was on a cruise list. I think he said they had NA gin. It was like non-alcoholic gin, which was crazy to me. I think I've heard too that they even have NA tequila. So I don't know what the point of that is. Maybe for the taste, some people like the taste, but the NA thing is huge. It's growing. I think these companies see the writing on the wall and where this is headed. And I think it's estimated that Gen Z drinks 20% less than millennials did. So the wellness culture is huge. Like they say sober curious, that's no longer like a new thing. It's mainstream. Everyone's talking about it. And as a matter of fact, we were in our call yesterday. If you want to join our Victory Council group, you can check that out at thatsoberguy.com, and we have weekly meetings there. And so a lot of guys jumping in and connecting, and it just helps to have that extra support and connection there. And one of our new guys, George, jumped in there yesterday. It was great to meet him. And he asked if we'd seen Happy Gilmore 2 yet. And I don't know if you've watched that yet, but our family watched it last week. And it was great, man. We watched it on the weekend, I think, when it came out. And if you notice in it, a big part of the story is he had an alcohol problem and he got sober and he changed his life around, and he stood up for his family, and he put his kids first, and he started to work on his health and his obviously his game. And he was trying to help his daughter go to dance college or dance school. And it was a lot of money. And there was just a lot of alcohol references in there that are counter to what we've been told and taught in that normalcy bias over the years. And so it's great to see guys like Adam Sandler and these big, movies, coming through. Another show we watch is Moms. I don't know if you guys watch that. It's based out in Napa, and it's Anna Faris, and I can't remember the mom's name, but they're both in recovery, and it's a great show. It's pretty hilarious, and we like that one too. But it's cool to see this change coming, this shift coming. So while traditional alcohol, I wanted to read this stat real quick. While traditional alcohol sales may take a hit, the NA category is booming. And we talked about that. It's 11, as of now, I think it was 11 billion. They're projecting the NA non-alcoholic beverage industry to be about 30 billion by 2030. That's crazy. I like you, but you're crazy. Dude, you got a freaking dart in your neck, man. If you know that movie, you're awesome. So let's get back to it though. What's the big picture here? And then we're going to wrap up here shortly. The big picture is this isn't just another health story. This is literally a culture war between a huge industry that's built on daily use and really getting people addicted. That's really what it comes down to. And the public, the people, hopefully the dudes out there who are supposed to be leading this charge, leading in a way, the public in general becoming more health conscious, more sober curious, more experience and health driven. And they're looking at the data, but they're also using common sense. They're going, man, like this just isn't serving me well. I'm tired of feeling like this. Like I want to feel whole. I want to feel real. What is the authentic self? How do I go have fun without alcohol? They're starting to ask those questions, and they're starting to become, it's more normal to ask those questions. So what does this mean for the everyday guy? What does this mean for the everyday dude out there? So maybe this is you. If you're a guy who has a few beers after work, maybe you think and you've heard for so long, and this could be even a family thing that gets passed down. Unfortunately, it does sometimes, that wine with dinner is normal. That's just a normal thing. We have wine with dinner. Or maybe you're a dude who says, I only drink socially. I only do it on the weekends or whatever. Like, this should hit close to home. This is a whole new mindset, a whole new thing here that is evolving. And the real takeaway here is it's not about guilt. Okay. It's not about saying, oh, you're bad because you think wine is normal with dinner. It's not the thing. And maybe I want to caveat that. Maybe there's plenty of people and families who do drink a glass of wine with dinner, or they have a half a glass of wine with dinner occasionally. If you're doing that every day though, don't you think that just common sense would tell me that might not be like the healthiest way? And that might not be, as normal as we thought it once was when we compare that to just cutting alcohol out and see the benefits there. So it's not about guilt. It's not about shaming anybody. It's not about saying you're wrong and I'm right, or you're right and I'm wrong, or no, that's not what I'm saying here. It's about awareness. It's about being conscious. It's about using the brain that God gave us to rethink how we think about alcohol, how we think about people's relationships with alcohol, how we think about the data behind it, how we think about the consequences for those who abuse it. What we once thought was harmless, and it's kind of not our fault. That's what we were told. And so I always say, whatever you're told doesn't necessarily mean it's true. So that's why I always say, do your own homework, do your own research, share your own experience, think about it. What you thought was harmless could actually be affecting you negatively. Your clarity, your health, your physical, mental, spiritual, your energy, your wallet at the same time, your finances. So it's not about being perfect. It's just about being aware and about having these conversations, opening our minds up to it, and taking an honest look at self and the industry itself as well. So for guys who want to quit or cut way back, I'm just here to tell you, as somebody who has cut alcohol out of my life back in 2013. The benefits are absolutely huge. Better sleep, less anxiety, more money, more focus, better leadership, better father, better husband, better business owner, better entrepreneur. Your kids are watching you. They notice, they know, they see. You think they just listen? Yeah, sometimes they don't listen, but more than anything, they watch. And so if they're seeing dad coming home drinking and intoxicated, and everything he does he plays golf, he's got to get drunk, comes home from work, got to get drunk, got to go to a funeral, got to drink. Dude, they see that. And they will do the same thing. They will repeat the same thing. So it's up to us as men to be the leaders and change that culture. And that's what we're trying to do here at Sober Guy. And I wanted to leave with this quote too. Removing alcohol isn't you're not losing anything. You're gaining so much more. It's an upgrade. So I know that's tough for people. We feel like when we quit, oh God, you're taking this away. I'm not taking anything away. I'm gaining so much more, and we have to kind of reframe it up like that. So let me give you some actionable takeaways here, But that's important, right? We want to, we're talking about this stuff, but what are the next steps? What can you do? If you're a dude out there listening to this and you're going, man, this is really hitting home with me. I want to take a look at quitting. Maybe I want to quit for 30 days. We can start there. Try it. 30 days without alcohol. See what changes. Be honest with yourself. Track how alcohol makes you feel, not just in the moment, but the next morning, the next day, the next week. How does your work performance do after that? Does it suffer? Does it get better? I can almost bet it doesn't get better. But rethink what normal is. We've been led to believe things that aren't necessarily true. What is normal? Is drinking every day normal? I'm going to tell you from my experience, it's absolutely not normal. You don't need to do that. You don't need to do that. We shouldn't be doing that. So if you want to try 30 days, we have our 30-day quit drinking challenge. You can find that at thatsoberguy.com. We also have a Sober October live cohort coming up where we're going to do the 30-day challenge as well as have live coaching sessions throughout those 30 days to connect and network and come together in community. And it's going to be a great program. I'm really excited about that. Where I wasn't even planning on talking about it again today, but it is up on the website, so you can check that out at thatsoberguy.com. Also, we have our free men's community, the Victory Circle. Connect with guys in there. And then we also have our Victory Council, where we have a weekly meeting and we have dudes in there connecting and meeting and just having some great support and some great conversations. So a shout out to all the dudes in the Victory Circle and the Victory Council. We appreciate you guys. Share this episode with someone who still thinks that a glass of wine a day keeps the doctor away. That old saying, right? It used to be an apple a day. Now it's a glass of wine and you're good. Doctors say that's cool. It's not necessarily the case. And I want to say this too, you don't need to wait for somebody to tell you what to do. I love this saying, plan, prepare your family, get everything, no matter what we're talking about, because nobody is coming to save you. You don't need big government to tell you that alcohol isn't serving you right. And obviously we talked about that today. They're changing the guidelines and big government's doing it. But at the end of the day, we're here to use the brain that God gave us and common sense. And I'm sure you could tell that poisoning ourselves even once a day, it's not overall going to be beneficial. It's just not. So you don't need to wait for them to tell you that. Okay? You don't need me to tell you that. Do your own research. Share your own experience. You already know. You already know that it's probably not serving you well, especially if you're listening to this right now. So I appreciate you tuning in today. Share the podcast with a friend. Go to thatsoberguy.com for any more resources. I appreciate you guys tuning in. Take care. God bless and keep your blood clean.